Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the OSHA Education Center Fusion Migration session. So we are here to answer your questions and give you a quick walkthrough about all of the features of Fusion Learning Management System that is coming your way here for the migration of this content to this new system. So there's a lot of great features and functionalities of the system that you haven't had before, and we're going to walk through all those features and functionalities regarding access to OSHA, outreach training, and other safety related topics. And that person who's going to walk us through that today is Brad Fuller, head of our support team. He's going to walk us through during today's presentation, give us all the features and functionality of Fusion. And what kind of is the backdrop of all this? Well, we're going to be switching all of our OSHA Education Center content and OSHA training, OSHA outreach training for construction and general industry over to Fusion starting on December 10th, which is next Monday, December 10th, 2024. You should start seeing emails coming up on Monday for that. So just be on the lookout for some email correspondence on instructions on how to access your new account and how to access this new system. And we will be making sure that on these webinars, you can answer any questions you have about that process. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Brad. And before I do, I'm going to let everyone know that today's session is being recorded. And so we will be sending you a recording of this session that you can watch back yourself or send and share with your coworkers and colleagues about Fusion and how it works. And the second thing I want to let people know is, how do you ask questions during today's session? To ask questions, you should see on your sidebar here on GoToWebinar, there's a few tabs here, and the tab I want to draw your attention to is the tab called Questions. There should be a Questions tab where you can go ahead and type in a question that you have, and our team of experts here, Tyler Lauk and Frank Delviar from our support team, should be able to help answer those questions for you, as well as we can post those questions directly to Brad during the session as well. And yep, we see your question that just popped in there, Julie, so that's exactly how you do it. And feel free to utilize that questions and answer functionality throughout the session today. And we'll make sure to have a Q&A session at the end of the session. With that, I think that's all of the housekeeping items I wanted to go over. So I'm going to hand it over to Brad for today's session, all about the features and functionalities of Fusion. Thanks for being here, Brad.
Thank you, Ryan. So for today's agenda, I do have a small list. I'd like to give everyone here a brief overview of the Fusion Training Portal. We're going to go over account setup and login, user management, and reporting and certification. First off, what is Fusion? Fusion is an online learning management solution that offers a user-friendly, intuitive system to better manage, track, and report on training performance and progress. With Fusion, you can effectively manage your intended training plan or safety and compliance needs across your facility or organization, saving time and resources with the built-in features that you'll have access to. Next week, when the migration kicks over, as Ryan mentioned, you're all going to receive personalized emails to help you access your administrative accounts if you have not already gained access. So one thing to note is that all Fusion customers have a single unified login portal that will be provided to you when your account is created. All users, whether administrators or students, will need this Fusion URL to access the software. That login portal is https://login.certus.com. So this will be used for people that have gone through, have already set up their registration account. So they've saved their password and they have their username, and they will be able to then subsequently go to that login portal for future logins. So this is what that login screen would look like. It's just a simple field. It says email/username. They would type in their email account. And then after clicking next, they would receive a password field and they would click here to log in. So for that initial registration, many of you will receive an email similar to this. It'll have a custom logo. It'll access any information about your account, including the first name, last name, a link to Fusion, which includes a one-time use registration URL. It'll forward you over to fusion.certus.com, where you will receive a registration form. So this is the process to allow all users to finish creating their account once it's initially set up. So again, it should pull any existing information about that account, including the email address, the first name, and the last name. And from there, they should be able to save a new password, verify that password, click confirm, and then log in on the next screen. So once more, if you have not already received an email to access your account, you will be receiving those next week, so be on the lookout. Once you are logged in to the Fusion portal as an administrator, you'll be greeted with the admin portal. This is the landing page or the home page. Front and center, you'll see a system dashboard, and for most of you, it'll be pretty much blank. But as students start going through and completing their training, you'll see these pie charts populate with results of that training. By default, that shows the past 30 days, which we can change the start and end dates by clicking on the clickable buttons here, the calendar icons, and updating the results with the search bar. It's more of just a quick peek at how training is going. Obviously, we have other reporting options or other administrative features to allow you to get more granular details about how that training is going as well. At the top of the page, we do have a banner. So any important system notifications, definitely be on the lookout for those. We also have quick links. So these access links to the home page, anywhere you're at, whether it's in the admin portal, these different pages that we have options to, or the LMS, that learning management system is where the students would be accessing their training, or if you yourself as an administrator are assigning yourself training and taking that, that's where you would go to access your own training as well. And then we have this profile drop-down menu to access any quick settings, again, for your account. You can change your password or you can log out. As an administrator, most of the tasks that you'll be looking to do in the Fusion software can be handled through the left navigation bar. So over on the left, we have 3 drop-down menus. We have the configuration drop-down menu to access site settings. You can also access your available courses, any programs that your team may have set up. You can also access the user management dropdown. So this is the area where you can go to set up audiences or view any emails sent out by the system or your current active user list, as well as certificates is a handy feature. Not a drop-down menu, but this is a button to open the new report manager, which we'll jump into in a moment. Just a quick sneak peek at what that interface looks like. And then we have the support drop-down menu. So anything you're looking for help for in the system, you can access our knowledge articles to view our self-help pages. You can go to our report manager specific help area, or you can contact our support team. All right, so you're logged into Fusion. Really the first step from here is if you have a team that requires training, you're gonna wanna get them into Fusion as well. So I would advise going to the user management users page. Again, I mentioned that this is the page where you can view all active accounts. Most of you jumping into Fusion for the first time, you'll just see your account or maybe a couple coworker accounts that are also listed as administrators in this list here. Otherwise, you're pretty much working with a blank slate. So you're going to want to get new users added in. Up at the top right, we have a few features that can help you do that. First, we have the import users button, which will allow you to do a bulk upload of multiple accounts at once. I won't go into the specific details here, as this is more just an overview call, but just note that once you do use this import users page, we have a few sections that will pretty much explain the steps that you'll need to take. And one quick thing for reference, if you do click that add users from file, you'll also get this handy example CSV template, which you can use to fill out and populate that user data that you might have from an HR system or just on hand at the time. And that file can then be used to be uploaded and import those users to the Fusion system. If you're only looking to add maybe a handful of accounts, 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5 tops at the time, you can honestly just do that manually. So with the new user button, if we click that, you'll be taken to a form where you can then fill out their required information for each account one at a time. Required information is designated by the asterisk here. So each of these fields that does have this star, you'll need to fill out yourself. I always advise using the login or that username to be the email of the person that you're adding to the system. Then you can fill in their first name, their last name, email address once again. And the last step is really choosing an authority. So if you're adding a student whose just role is to log into Fusion and take the assigned training, you'll want to check student. If you're adding someone that's going to help you administer training to the site, then the lowest permission level that they would probably need is the local admin, or you could add a org admin as well. So they would have the same permissions as you. One other thing I'll mention is the notification email address field here. While not required, this can be handy to help organize email communication back and forth from the system. So while the email address that you're saving for that account is specific to that user, you could use the notification email address to list a training manager's email. Or your own email if you'd like. So this is essentially acting as a CC. So any email address any email notification that the user receives, this notification email address would also receive. With all the fields selected and saved, you can choose to send a welcome email, which I'll get into in a moment. Otherwise, you would click Save. You should receive a green banner at the top of the page saying that account was added, and you'll have some quick access links to jump into that specific account, edit other details from there, or you can do a quick just switch over to the main users page again. We do have a quick search features here. So obviously with the address bar at the top, or the search bar, sorry, you could type in any keywords, first name, last name, email address, and that'll pull up the user. Type Stan here and search for that. All accounts with Stan in the name will show up. We also have these quick drop-down menus. We have a status that's showing all enabled accounts, and we have an authorities filter, currently not filled in, but we can quickly pull up any org admins such as ourselves or specific to students. We can see we have 4 students here, and I can switch back to all to show all 7 active accounts. One thing I do want to point out is that as you're preparing users' accounts, or just maybe going through the motions of setting up accounts first, you may wish to prepare the accounts ahead of time, but not open up access to Fusion until a specific point in time. So in that case, what I do see some administrators doing is they disable accounts. So I'm going to disable Cam here. Cam is no longer showing up in this list. Maybe down the road, I'm looking to get Cam set back up in the system. I may have forgotten that I already added Cam's account. So from this list, Cam's not here. I'm going to go click New User, and I'm going to attempt to add Cam back in. So this is a common pitfall, and I'm just going through the motions here to show off that if I attempt to save this account, I receive a pop-up. It says email case insensitive must be unique. So this isn't necessarily an error. This is just a warning telling you that someone in the system already exists with the email address that you tried to add. So what gives? Cam's not in this list. If I switch to status disabled, there I see Cam, and I can easily add him back into the active roster. So key takeaway there, each account that you add to the system has to have a unique email address. So you will not be able to add multiple emails. You will not be able to add multiple accounts with the same email address once they're already in the system. All right, so we have our active list of users. Now, once you do have the users in the system, you would want to make sure to give them access to that. So again, we mentioned that we have this login portal, https://login.certus.com for future logins. But the first step of the process is just to make sure that they can register their account. When you create a new account, each account receives a custom Fusion account registration URL. So if I were to copy this link and I go into a new browser, we could see that similar account creation form that the student would receive to set up their password, confirm, and log in. Another option, you may find it easier, is if you did create a bunch of accounts beforehand and then held off on sending them any instructional information about how to access their account, we have a feature called a welcome email. So you can do this in mass. So if I click the top checkbox here and I select, maybe I just choose the student accounts and I click the top checkbox to select those 4 student accounts, I could click send welcome mail. And that email is already going to include that account specific URL embedded in a link that they would click. So once more, we'll show this off. It's a template of our welcome email. So each welcome email will include a link to Fusion. If I hover my mouse over, you may see it's a specific URL down there in the bottom left, fusion.certus.com/b/register, and then their unique registration ID for their account. That welcome email will also include their username. So that'll be the email, or as long as you're following recommended practices, email for their first name. So that'll send out to the student. They can click that link, complete registration, and then save their password and get logged in. If they do log in, they would see something similar to this. So this is more of the student view, and right now I'm on the home page for the students. A student up at the top has access to my training. Most students would not have this admin button. Again, this is just because I'm logged in as an admin profile. This will kick me back over to the portal. And then the student would see any courses, for instance, our 30-hour OSHA outreach, or any of the other available trainings that your organization has purchased and that you have or a coworker has set up for that student to log in and access. They would be able to click continue or start and launch that course to resume their training. Swapping back over to the admin portal, so let's show you off one of the many ways that can be used to get a student access to training. So once the account is set up, let me go over to Cam student here. So by clicking on Cam's first name, I'm taken to Cam's edit user page. So again, I can access all their user details. I could see some quick information like when they last logged in, who created their account. I can update any permissions if need be, or correct a name. I have some additional actions here as far as deleting accounts, impersonating accounts, or sending a welcome email individually to that student. Up at the top, we also have a few tabs that you can use. Besides user details, we have course enrollments, we have program enrollments, and we have badges. So really the main two outside of user details that most administrators will be using is the course enrollments tab or the program enrollments tab. So courses are just a way to give access to an individual course. And then we have programs. So as an administrator, you have the ability to define multiple courses as part of a package or a bundle, and you can enroll students in that program. So they would receive multiple course enrollments depending on how that program is set up. If we just have a scenario where we want to hand out one individual course enrollment, see, most people would be using this course enrollments tab. If you just created a student account, this page would mainly be blank. But down here at the bottom, you see Cam student has already been enrolled in 3 courses. So this is currently showing off any enrollments that they are either in progress or have been enrolled and not yet started. So that's 3 courses here. We have the 30-hour, the crane safety, and the rigging safety. As an administrator, I can also change this view by seeing any in progress, specifically not started, any courses the student has completed, so on and so forth. So as you see, no enrollments have been found. That's because Cam has not yet completed any training. At any time on this page, if I'm looking to set up a new enrollment, I would head over here to the blue Enroll button, Clicking that will pull up a list of courses that I have the ability to enroll in CAM. Now, as you can see, let me swap back to the other page. I have more courses on this site. I have a 30-hour crane safety and a rigging safety, but when I click enroll, those do not appear. While you can set up multiple enrollments for a student in the same course, that student would have to complete the course, that original enrollment, before you would be able to re-enroll them in that course. So just something to note there. Essentially, when I click that enroll button, any course that that student is not currently working on will be available for me to add to him. So by selecting the course name, I clicked that checkbox there. If there's multiple courses, I'd be able to click multiple checkbox over here on the left. When I've confirmed all my selections, I would head over here to select courses. We'll get into this meaning in a second, but essentially you would just see the start date, and then optionally you can choose a due date and an end date. Most administrators really just care about when they open up access to the course itself. So if you're looking to set up training, maybe stagger it or choose a date in advance, this is essentially telling Fusion, when this student logs in, this is the date that they should have access to this course. Clicking confirm will allow you to finish setting up the enrollments, but I'm going to click cancel out of here. Once you do click confirm, that list or that course enrollment would show up here and populate in this list, and that student would then theoretically be able to log in and take the training. So that, as I mentioned, was one way, setting up a direct single enrollment for one individual user. We have multiple ways of setting up both accounts and course enrollments. So if you are an administrator of a larger team, I would next point out our audience feature. So maybe you don't want to manually create 20 accounts at once, or you don't want to use our import users and set up 20 enrollments. One option you have is to create an audience. Again, this would mainly be a blank slate when you do log in. So this gives you the chance to build up a new audience. I'm going to, I guess, go through the motions and show what that would look like. So for the moment, I'm clicking that add audience button, and the page refreshed to this short form. I have to fill out a name, I have to give an instructor, and I have to choose whether this is going to be an active audience or disable it for now. So I will give this audience a name. I will choose an instructor. So this is essentially telling the system, hey, we have this user account, Bob Instructor. Bob is the instructor of maybe 10 different students, and Bob's going to oversee their training. So Bob would have access as an instructor to this audience. If you don't have any defined instructor roles, again, that authorities page, as I was filling out the user form, would be instructor would be one of those options. If you don't have any instructors, then this field would just be hidden. It would be a step that's not necessary for you to fill out, and you just need to fill in the name and set the status. But if your organization would make use of instructors, then that is the role of the instructor there, essentially. Okay, so I've clicked save, and I've gotten that green banner saying my audience was saved. I can now return back to the main audience list, or I can go to the new audience I just saved and edit it further from there. So I'm going to do so. So I'm now looking at the edit page for my webinar demo audience, and you'll see I have 3 tabs as well as a process enrollments button. So I've already defined my audience details. Now the next step to creating an audience is to define training. So over on the training tab, I'm going to select, again, if my team has created any specific programs, I can choose add programs, or I can click this add course to pull in courses from the available list. So say I want to set up a group invested in the 10-hour OSHA outreach for general industry, I will choose that course. I get to select my frequency. Maybe I just want to set up a one-time enrollment. Maybe I want to set up annual retraining. I have those options here. I can click confirm and add that course to my training tab. So I've defined the training that this audience is giving out. Now I'm going to click over to my users tab. So with audiences, a nifty feature is the invitation link. What this allows us to do as administrators is we can copy this invitation link and we can send that off to either via email or chat or text. We can send that over to the team that needs to take the training in that OSHA 10 course. So I, as an administrator, have not created any specific accounts. I've just created the audience, and I'm now using this invitation link to invite people to the Fusion system. So anyone with that link would have access to be able to create an account. So their landing page here, I've used that audience-specific invitation link. I've loaded that in a new browser, and anyone that needs to have an account created should be instructed to click this Create New Account button. That'll push them over to that registration form. So very similar again, I'm showing this Create Account, although you'll notice it is completely blank. There's no email address, they have to fill in a password, and they also have to fill in their first and last name. So this form will allow them to essentially create their own accounts, click confirm, and then log in with the information that they just filled out. So as an administrator, that certainly saves you some extra steps. But another key thing with audiences is that you can manually build up your own roster. So as long as users already exist in the system, if you just want to get them added to this audience that you have created, you can go ahead and click this add button here. So by doing so, that'll open up anyone who's not currently in this audience, and you can choose one or more people to pull in from there. So I'll do myself here. Okay, so I've added myself to this audience. So I should have access to this 10-hour OSHA outreach course. If I go over to the LMS, we see that I've only had the 30-hour OSHA outreach course added, so I did not get the course from this audience. Why is that? That's the role of this process enrollments button that I mentioned earlier. So this essentially acts as a save button. So highly recommend using that after adding any training or removing any training if you made a mistake before sending it off to users. So as you're building out your training tab, if you're done making changes, I would recommend clicking process enrollments. If you're making any updates to the roster, manually including users, I would then click process enrollments. So what that tells Fusion is, hey, anyone in this updated list, make sure that they receive the training that has been defined. You do not need to go in as an administrator. If you're using the invitation link, anytime someone self-registers, you don't need to come back here and click process enrollments. It will automatically set them up in the training that you defined in the tab. But again, when you do make any changes to this training tab, be sure to click process enrollments to save those changes. That way, when someone does self-register, they would receive those courses. We'll see now, back in the LMS, I have access to both the 10 and the 30-hour. All right, there are multiple other ways besides audiences and individual enrollments, but I figure that most people getting into Fusion for the first time, those will be the most helpful ways of getting students set up in training. So we've covered an overview of the training portal. We've covered how to access your account, how to log in, how to set up other users, and how to get those users set up in training. Last part of the agenda here is just to make sure that we cover, okay, users are in, how do we track their progress? And once they've completed their training, how do we make sure that they are certified? One of the ways that we can track progress in real time is, again, from the user management users page. So if I'm back on the home page, I can access that by clicking the user management dropdown and go to users. And let's go ahead and choose Cam, maybe Sean's student, I think, if I remember correctly. So I've selected a user from the list. I'm now looking at their edit user page, and I'm going to head over to course enrollments. So again, in this drop-down menu, we have the 10-hour OSHA outreach for general industry. Sean has not yet started it. So if I click details, I'm really not going to see much here. I get to see any status information about, again, when they started, what date they were enrolled, who set them up in training, if there were any start, due, or end dates set up for them. And then we get to see specific topics or activities from that course enrollment that that student is currently working through. Right now, we see that the status is locked. Well, that doesn't mean that the student itself is locked out from taking the training. This simply means that either they have not yet launched the course, so the prerequisite here is that they need to go into their account and click on the course name to launch the course. That would unlock the activity. Or there could be other activities in the course that are the prerequisite to the locked status. So say there was a 10-hour OSHA outreach and a post-test and maybe a third activity. The first two activities may be locked until the first activity is completed. So nothing to be alarmed of there. But as we can see, ultimately, Sean has not started this. So I'm going to exit out and try and find something he has started. Sean was a no-go. Let me go back to Cam. Cam has not completed anything. Okay, so Courtney's on the ball. Courtney's been enrolled previously in crane safety and rigging safety, and Courtney has completed those two courses. So I can view the details here. I can see when Courtney completed it, and I can see if there were any scores associated. We could see the scores for that final test here as well, and possibly how many attempts that they took to complete that. I believe these were manually completed, which is why we're not seeing a final score there. This is just for demonstration purposes. So that's one way is just showing off that you can use the enrollments tab to view any active enrollments, any completed enrollments from the student, and this handy details link to give you a little deeper dive into that specific enrollment. Say you have a bunch of users and you don't necessarily want to sit there like I just did and click into 20 accounts at a time. You want to be able to run a report, and that's what the new report manager is for. So by clicking the New Report Manager button, you'll be taken over to the report interface. A couple things to be aware of in this interface is we have a breakdown of different report categories, and inside of those categories, the different reports available to each. What I mean by that is that for the categories options, we have different reports based around activities or course enrollments. We have reports based around assessments or final tests. You can see who's actively logging into your site. If they're having any issues, possibly timing out or using the wrong password, you'll be able to get information there. It's good for troubleshooting. Other would be a collect. Apologies, I seem to be having some audio issues here. Other would be a collection of bucket list reports. So these not necessarily reporting on one specific activity or course enrollment, but can be helpful. Say you need to pull a list of all active accounts, employee report would be your go-to. Say your team's created programs and defined specific courses inside that program, you want to run a specific program report, see what the percentage of completion is, program report would be your go-to there. Most of you, however, will just be looking to obtain how are my students doing or how's my team doing in their training right now. So activity would be the category to go. I always recommend participant status as kind of like the first look at our reporting features. If you're looking for something specific or more granular information, activity detail, activity usage definitely gives you a lot of information, but kind of just a top down, just an overview, how's my team doing, participant status report or starts completions is the way to go. So to actually launch this report, I have two options. I can hover my mouse over this folder looking icon and the tooltip comes up and says preview, or I can hover over the next one over, it says view report in new window. Both essentially launch the report. It's just a matter of preference to say screen space or just how you want to view the report in general. All right, so I am now previewing the participant status report. Now, some of these reports do have the ability to just auto run based off of default parameters. This report did not because for my account, I am required to fill out a specific parameter before the report can run. And that is defined by the red dot next to the field name over here in the parameter list. So let me drag this over here and just give off a quick demonstration. So I'm on South Street. Most of you will not have to fill out a tenant name. It'll already be pre-populated. This is just for me as my own personal account. I have to fill that in. Otherwise, I now have the option to select some parameters. Narrow down the amount of data that pulls in for this report. So if I'm looking for details on a specific course, I could choose that here. If I've created an audience, I can select a specific audience to run report on. I could look for individual users. So maybe I don't need all users. I just want to see maybe how Cam, Courtney, Sean, and Stan are doing. I can select those accounts individually. Ultimately, really what you just need to put in for the participant status report to run is to define a date range. By default, it would be the past 30 days. Let me go back just to pull in the past 2 months. And then finally, I would click preview to run that report. So that's going to do its thing. I can drag this back over for more screen space, or I can hide this menu temporarily just to see what kind of data I'm working with. Okay, so one thing to note, participant status and start completions are basically a 2-in-1 report. And what I mean by that is the first time they run, you are really getting a summary version of the report. And then that summary version allows you to do a deeper dive to get more specific data by clicking into one of the available hyperlinks. So at surface level, participant status report has ran, and what this information is giving me is that I have 4 courses that I've set up, or my team has set up enrollments for. I've got the 10-hour, the 30-hour, the crane safety, the rigging safety. Of those enrollments, 8 students have not started, 3 are in progress, 4 have completed. So we also get that breakdown here in this section. If I want to see, for instance, crane safety, just how the team is doing in that course, I can click the name crane safety, and that's going to rerun and give me that breakdown, that the details or the more granular data. So what that's telling me is for this course, crane safety, I have 4 enrollments, 1 for Cam, 2 for Courtney, 1 for Stan. Let me hide this parameter menu again. And then over on the right, we can see the different breakdown of their current progress, if they have started it, what that start date was, if they've completed it, what that complete date was. Again, the final score on their post-test, which is not showing up just because this is a preview. And then we have the duration. So how long that student spent in training or has spent up till the report has been run here. So that's handy information. Say you have a bunch of students that have completed it, you're just looking to pull that data just to have on file. You do have the option to export the data that you've ran through this parameter menu. So I've expanded that back up here, and the export option you'll find is this square icon on the right with the arrow pointing out to the right. So if I click on that, I now have 2 fields. I could choose my delivery type, so I want to export it or I want to send via email, and I can choose the file format. So by default, that's Excel. If I'd prefer a PDF or a CSV, I can choose those as well. So once I've set that, I can choose export. That'll prepare the export and download that to my local desktop. Ryan or Tyler, that about covers what I wanted to go through. So what do we have going on for the Q&A?
Yes, absolutely, Brad. Thank you so much. We got a couple good questions that Frank Delviar from our support team was able to answer, but I'll pose them verbally on here if you wanted to add any color commentary to that, Brad. So the first one, Stacy is asking, is there still the 180-day access requirement for our OSHA courses to complete the course? And the answer is absolutely yes, but also with some additional functionality there. So Frank kind of helped Stacy with some of the other things that we have in terms of setting enrollments. Now we can not only set a date where that is going to drop off their plan, but also a due date that will start notifying them past due dates as well. So yeah, you can set that for less than the 180 days if you wanted to start notifying people So there's kind of a notification system built in. Is there anything else you wanted to add there, Brad, on the functionality of kind of the 180-day access requirement for some of these courses?
Yes, and that also made me remember of another feature that I wanted to talk about. So thank you very much for asking this question.
Yeah, no worries.
So I am viewing the courses page. Again, I can access that from configuration courses. I can view my available library of courses that I can set up enrollments for. And then to answer this question a little more, or just to display what that would look like for those watching. Yes, when you're setting up enrollments, you have the ability to, I can go through the enroll user motion here, but I'll also just show off that we can change dates by existing enrollments. So I can click that and click change date. So this is kind of what we're getting to here. When you're setting up an enrollment, you have the ability to define when a student has access, and you can define what is a suggested due date that they should complete that by, and you have the access to set an end date. Functionality in the system, due date is really not doing anything. The student will be able to retain access to the course, hypothetically past the date that you set here. This would just trigger some system notifications for that student. Just be like, hey, you should really get this training done. It's due by X date. And those are pre-built in the system to send out, I believe, maybe a month ahead of the date that you select, and then again, either 2 weeks or a week beforehand. Can't remember off the top of my head right now, but that's just the role of the due date. In Fusion, the end date is also setting uh, access to this enrollment. So if the student, no matter what part of the training process that they're in for their course enrollment, if they have not finished by this end date, or even if they have, the date that you select here for the end date would tell the Fusion system, this is when they no longer have access to the course. And then obviously along with the due date, any end date that is set, the system would send reminder emails to that person. So if they were to log in, I'm looking at Courtney here, if Courtney were to log in to her training after 12/5, she would no longer see a course that she could either review or continue training in because of the date that was set here. On the other hand, OSHA courses are regulated courses. So that 180 days restriction that you're already familiar with, that is not impacted by any dates that you set here. It is pre-built into the course itself. So even if you choose an end date of, say, December 5th, 2025, that is more than 180 days away. So that student would lose access to their course even before the date that was set here because of that 180-day restriction. Another thing, hopefully that answers that question, but I did want to point out a feature here as far as licenses. So with OSHA courses, your team may purchase one or more licenses or different student access to the course, maybe a handful of 5 or more. What you were not able to do in the old system is really have an easy way to see how many licenses you have available. In Fusion, you do have a way to access that. So back here on the courses page, in general, we have a limit column, and we have some flags here. So the blue flags, for me, tells me that I have available licenses. I can set up any number of training in crane safety and rigging safety, and I'm in the clear. And then I have these OSHA courses that are showing a yellow flag. Well, these are actually clickable, so I can jump in and see what's going on here for the OSHA course. So clicking into that brings me specific to that edit course page for the 10-hour OSHA and straight to the licensing details tab. So with licensing details, you can see how many licenses were purchased, how many have been consumed, how many you have remaining, and expiration dates. So outside of the 180-day, there's also license expirations. I believe everyone has 1 year's access from the date of purchase, and that would be that date reflected here. So some quick snapshots, you can see the number of students enrolled, the number of licenses remaining, and specifically for this course, and kind of the key as to why that flag was yellow when I clicked into it, as opposed to the first two that were showing blue, is that the system's telling me I currently have more enrollments set up for this course than I have licenses remaining. So that's not going to impact those that are currently working through training. I could have, so in this scenario, I've purchased 2 seats or 2 licenses for the 10-hour course. I can have 5 enrollments set up in the system. The first 2 students out of that group of 5 to start the course would be able to get in and take the training. The next student that tries to launch the course would get a reminder in their system that it is a course that has license restrictions and that they are currently unable to continue in their training and that they should contact their training administrator. So that's just to tell the student, hey, although you've been given access to the enrollment, your administrator still needs to step in and make sure that the license count has been updated. Over in the enrollment section, we can again see for this specific course, there have been a total of 4 enrollments. So that's why that's what triggered this warning, is that we've only purchased 2, but there's 4 currently enrolled. So if need be, we can maybe remove some extra enrollments if these were handed out by mistake and the student has not yet started. The license itself is consumed the moment a student starts the course. So if you try to go through and clean up the completed list, delete some of those out, that unfortunately will not impact the number of licenses remaining. So just some things to keep in mind there.
Excellent. And just to remind everyone here on the line, in case you missed the first couple minutes of today's session, now is our time to ask our questions for Brad and for our support team here on the line. To do so, to ask a question, go ahead and go to the questions tab here on our GoToWebinar control panel, and you can go ahead and type in a question, and that'll come to us on the panel here, and we'll get your questions answered. We got Frank Delviara from our support team answering some great questions here on the line. Brad, the next question that Frank answered was about folks who saw their user list under user management and saw that their ability to delete a user or impersonate a user was grayed out. And so what Frank recommended they do is to clear their cookies and cache from their browser in case, because that tends to happen when a user is being actively edited. Is there anything you'd like to add to that as well, Brad? If someone's seeing that maybe one of the options for impersonating or deleting a user is grayed out?
Nothing that I would specifically add to that. It's possibly they're running into a permissions conflict. Like say we have someone with the instructor role. I'm just double checking that really quick by impersonating an instructor. So I'm jumping in as this account. Let me see if I can. So maybe this is grayed out because we can't mass delete accounts. So that checkbox is grayed out because I can't do a mass update option. So if I'm an instructor, I would not be able to delete an account that has a higher permission level than me. But as you can see, I retained the ability to select students or other instructors such as myself to perform a mass update on. And by clicking the checkboxes next to those names, I have access to perform mass options. So I can delete users in mass, I can toggle disable, so that'll disable any enabled accounts here, or if I'm looking at disabled accounts, that'll toggle those disabled accounts back to enabled. I can send the welcome email and I can perform some other actions here that don't really necessarily pertain to OSHA instructors, but so that might be the reason is if they're using pretty much, they're looking at an account that has a higher permission set, they would not be able to delete those accounts.
Gotcha. Adam asked a really great question that I think is really good to make sure everyone here is aware of as well. So let's say we use the audience feature to set up a group of students into, let's say, OSHA 10 training courses. Will those students still need a code to access their training? And Frank definitely correctly said that we no longer use codes in Fusion, and that is part of the magic of Fusion. You don't need those super long numbers and letters in a promo code anymore to access training. It'll all be managed automatically through the Fusion interface. Is there anything else you'd like to add there, Brad?
No, yeah, that's actually a very good point. Is that our company no longer uses verification codes to redeem those courses. We're passing control over enrollments to administrators to just more easily give access to the training that the student needs. So the act of creating the Fusion account for the student, setting them up an enrollment of that specific course, that is all the work that is required there. From then, a student can log in. I've impersonated the CAM student account here, and they could launch their course. So let me launch this crane safety course. I can click start. That'll open up the Fusion course player, and then I can click that course name to launch the course. So that'll take me over. There's no redemption codes that I have to enter. After the course initializes, I think most OSHA courses are still required like student information, so there may be another form that that student has to fill in, and any notifications, account notifications, or actions that that student needs to take will be a pop-up. So in this case, I cannot start the course until I provide the user information. So yeah.
Right. That is being one of the requirements for the course. Okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, so let's see if we got. What if a company? So Julie is asking, what if a company what if an employee leaves the company after a course was issued to them? How might that work in Fusion?
Good question. So again, with licenses being the key factor of control for handing out enrollments, as long as a student has been set up with an enrollment and has not started the course, that license has not been considered consumed. So if we just want to clean this up, if that user has left the company, maybe I want to just disable their account entirely just to clean up the active list of users. We can disable the account here on the edit user page, or I can disable that account here on the main page. If we're worried about enrollments, again, I have control as an administrator to delete that enrollment. So looking at the individual student, I can clean up this 30-hour OSHA enrollment. I can delete that out. So that is no longer populating. But ultimately, again, it's the factor of, has a student signed into their Fusion account and have they launched the training? If they have, unfortunately, there's no way as an administrator that you would be able to just be like, actually, I just want to undo this, even if they've already started. If they're in progress, you'll have to work with your account representative to have a new license added to your account. So I would recommend reaching out to your account rep to have that, if there's one or more licenses that you need to replace, say a student's no longer there, you've disabled their account, but unfortunately they started, so the licenses were consumed. We would want to make sure that you have the ability to get those licenses back. So I guess ultimately,
Gotcha.
please reach out to your account rep then.
Sounds
But
great. That makes
with
sense
that
here.
said, sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
really
Go
quick.
ahead.
If it's not a billing account related matter, if you're having a question with the technical aspects of Fusion, then I do want to just point out one more time the support drop-down menu. We have our support team's contact information here and our main number if you choose option 3 from this menu for technical support, or you can click the contact support form to fill out a help desk ticket and submit that to my team.
Gotcha. We have a good question coming in from Brenda. She would love it if you could show us how we would go about printing a certificate and what title or maybe permission we would need to have to do so.
Yes, I did say I would I'd cover that, didn't I? Another thing that I missed.
No problem.
So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so I believe we had Cam, oh, who did we have? Courtney. Courtney was on the ball. So as an administrator, specifically for the courses on this demo site, at this time, the best way would be to have the student complete the certificate upon completing their course. But if they fail to do so, as an administrator, you can impersonate that account and you can go to their My Training. You can view their recently completed courses and click the review button and effectively launch that course yourself and access the download proof of completion here link. So that should be front and center. The reason why I'm not doing so here is because this was manually completed. So technically the course isn't completed and they have not earned their certificate. So I won't go into that, but as an administrator, to access the certificate for the courses right now, the best suggestion I can give is to impersonate that student, launch the course as them, and then on that next screen, as you saw earlier in my demonstration, it opens up a new tab and launches the course. That first screen should have, just in clear text, download proof of completion here. There are other courses in Fusion that are not of the OEC nature, OSHA outreach, so not the non-OSHA courses or the crane and rigging safety courses that have their own Fusion certificate of completion. So at this time, this isn't really helpful to everyone here, but updates to follow as time goes on. We do have this certificate option. So really what this page allows you to do is do a bulk download of any earned certificates. Again, this does not apply to OSHA courses or OSHA safety courses right now, but something to look forward to down the road. This is specifically impacting other courses that we offer right now. But this would allow you to search up any completed certificates or completed courses and download all those files en masse. So I guess just I wanted to clarify the role of that certificates page and why I'm not showing that off as opposed to jumping into specific student enrollments, again, because there's a difference between the OSHA courses and other courses that our company offers. So sorry to tease that little feature. Unfortunately, it's not helping out the team here right now.
Yeah, with the regulatory nature of OSHA training, we definitely need to follow some more strict rules of kind of offering those certificates up and making sure that those certificates, which are built into the course itself that we just talked about, you go in and you click review on that course and download that proof of completion. That is the best way for you to go about that, Brenda. So thank you so much for asking that question. And Brad, I think those are all of our questions today. Is there any closing thoughts you'd like to share with us before we finish up for the day?
No, I think overall it's definitely an exciting system to work in, pretty easy to navigate once you know just the specific buttons that you need to click on to do your work and kind of how to manage your training needs from there. So happy to have everyone and thank you all for joining the call.
Thank you so much, Brad, for sharing all these features and functionalities with us. And thank you all for spending your hour here with us, going over all these features and functionalities of Fusion. We're really excited to offer up this kind of enhancement to your workflow on offering OSHA 10 and OSHA 30 and all sorts of other safety and technical topics to your workforce in a streamlined fashion. So thank you all for being here, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great day.